The Vralic did not take prisoners out of mercy. Their prison stations were infamous across the quadrant, cold mechanical labyrinths orbiting dying stars, where gravity was unstable and the air always tasted slightly of metal and regret. So when they dragged Sergeant Reza Valdez into Cell 9 Gamma, bloodied but conscious, they believed a human had finally broken. They were wrong. He counted their footsteps as they left, marked the slight squeak in the left boot of the taller guard, and noted the half-second delay between the cell door's magnetic hiss and the hum of the surveillance drone activating. He smiled. Even mistakes made by efficient monsters could be useful. Then he dropped to the floor and started doing push-ups. They called him Specimen 47A. Reza preferred Reza. His left shoulder ached from the plasma shot that had dropped him during the skirmish on Zeta 5. The Vralic's field medicine consisted of fusing wounds shut with cauterization foam and adrenaline injections. Not great, but it kept him conscious. Too conscious, really. For 3 days, he hadn't slept more than a few minutes at a time. The lights never dimmed. The drones never stopped watching. So he adapted. He talked to himself. Not out loud, just a faint movement of lips. It drove the guards mad trying to decode the subvocalized encryption language. Reza let them think that, in truth, he was just reciting every recipe he could remember from his grandmother's kitchen. Every moment of silence he filled with some kind of task. Breathing rhythms, muscle stretches, mental math, tactical reviews. Humans needed stimulation. Deprivation was supposed to be the killer. But Reza treated boredom like a puzzle. He knew the guards didn't understand. He could hear in their clicks and rustling fronds some mix of confusion and fear. The human was adapting. Rapidly. That shouldn't happen. By day 4, Reza had mapped his routine with surgical precision. Meals arrived via a mechanical slot that jammed slightly if he applied pressure at the right moment. The walls vibrated every 7.2 minutes, likely from a nearby grav core stabilizer. The oxygen had a mild ammonia undertone, meaning faulty filtration or insufficient atmospheric separation. He filed it all away. What he hadn't seen or heard were the others. There had been 4 of them in his squad. They'd been ambushed during recon, dragged into a black site by Vralic raiders. He'd watched Lena go down behind him, bleeding but alive. Sprocket had vanished with a flash of blue light and static. Boomer had yelled something entirely inappropriate before triggering a makeshift EMP that fried half the jungle around them. After that, nothing. But they were out there. He was sure of it. And that meant one thing. He wasn't escaping alone. On day 5, a guard entered the cell. Reza pretended to be asleep. The Vralic's long limbs moved silently, like shadows cast in wrong directions. This one was different, dressed in obsidian armor instead of a drab utility vest. An officer, maybe. The alien spoke, not in its own tongue, but heavily accented galactic trade. Human, you have not screamed. This is statistically abnormal. Reza cracked an eye open. Sorry, you want to start now? The officer tilted its head. Its face had no mouth, just a cluster of gill-like slits that fluttered faintly. You will be transferred. The High Warden wishes to study your neurological resistance. Great. Do I get a min on the pillow this time? They didn't respond. The officer merely stepped back as 2 guards entered with restraining cuffs. Reza smiled faintly. Perfect. This was the crack he'd been waiting for. The transfer hall was dim, sterile. Vralic guards surrounded him, their weapons humming faintly. Reza shuffled along, counting the turns, noting every control panel, every flickering power relay. A clank echoed from ahead. The lead guard stopped. Subroutine glitch, one of them hissed. Control node offline. That was when Reza heard it. 2 sharp clinks, like metal tapping metal, hidden under the electric hum. A pattern, 3 short, 2 long. Morse. He coughed loudly, masking the return tap. Acknowledged. Sprocket. Still alive. Still fighting. The guards pushed him forward, oblivious. They deposited him into a new holding unit, a communal one. Metal bunks lined the walls. A faint green light glowed from the ceiling. For inmates turned to look at him, only one mattered. Skin darkened from exposure, hair hacked short with a makeshift blade, eyes sharp as ever. Sprocket. Reza didn't react outwardly. Neither did she. But in the subtle shift of posture, the twitch of a smile, it was clear. Reunion. That night. While the guard scanned for vocalizations and movement, Reza dragged his fingers through the grime on the wall, slowly drawing out a map with broken lines. Sprocket added to it wordlessly. Identifying pipes, circuit boxes, airlock redundancies. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The plan had already started. By the end of day 6, Reza knew 3 things for sure. Lena was alive, her name scrawled in Vralic shorthand on a crew roster near the AI control bay. Boomer was unaccounted for, but there were rumors among the inmates of a ghost in the vents who kept stealing power cells and leaving behind crude drawings of explosions. The Vralic were worried. The guard were doubling shifts. System glitches were increasing. Something was unraveling, and they didn't know why. But Reza did. Humans didn't break the way the Vralic expected. They adapted. They connected. And when they were cornered, they got creative. He scratched one more mark into the wall and looked at Sprocket. Let's break something. She grinned. Let's break everything. Reza ducked into the shadow of a broken conduit, his breath steady despite the heat blooming from the exposed wiring overhead. Somewhere deeper in the belly of the prison, a klaxon wailed twice, then abruptly cut out. Another unexplained malfunction. That made 5 in the last hour. At this rate, the whole facility was going to eat itself alive, which, conveniently, was a plan. Sprocket crawled in beside him, flicking off the plasma cutter she'd Frankenstein from scrap parts and a melted food tray. The last firewall's down, she whispered. Security logs think we're in our bunks and 3 floors down. We got about 20 minutes before they notice we're ghosting. Reza grinned. Plenty of time to start a riot. Sprocket raised an eyebrow. You serious? I'm always serious when I say things that sound dumb. They move like ghosts, skirting surveillance, sliding through maintenance shafts no Vralic would stoop low enough to crawl. With Sprocket's engineering knowledge and Reza's tactical instincts, they formed an elegant rhythm. Each turn and timing was precise. Their goal was clear. Reach the auxiliary AI relay node hidden beneath the environmental processing unit, where Lena was reportedly being held. Sprocket, for all her mechanical brilliance, had changed since the jungle ambush. Her face was harder now, leaner. Every movement was efficient, stripped of excess. She didn't talk much anymore, but when she did, it was pure information, compressed, tactical, brilliant. Reza caught her glancing sideways as they crept along a steam-lined tunnel. What? He asked. You haven't asked how I survived. I figured the answer involved questionable choices and physics violations. She smirked. You're not far off. The environmental wing was colder than the rest of the prison. Frost laced the pipes overhead, condensation dripping in irregular patterns. They moved slowly now. This was where the guard were thickest. Every few meters, one of the Vralic drifted by, tall and sharp, weapons cradled with the lazy confidence of predators. Reza flattened behind a coolant tank and tapped Sprocket twice on the shoulder. Eyes up, he mouthed. A pair of guards passed within arm's reach. Their gills pulsed, releasing phenomenal bursts of anxiety. The Vralic were spooked. Good. Reza waited for the right moment, then slid around the corner. The door to the AI node was sealed by a biometric lock keyed to Vralic DNA. Sprocket handed him a translucent sack, filled with something unidentifiable and pulsing faintly. Please tell me that's not what I think it is, Reza muttered. Depends. Are you thinking? Cultured Vralic epithelial tissue harvested from a stolen shaving razor and grown in a nutrient gel made of prison cafeteria soup? Reza grimaced. You're a terrifying person. Thank you. The lock chirped. The door hissed open. Inside, the air was dry and static-charged. Cables hung like vines from the ceiling, weaving into the walls like roots into soil. At the center of the room stood a containment pod, surrounded by alien instruments and humming relays. Inside the pod, Lena Zhou. She sat cross-legged, eyes closed, thin wires trailing from her temples into the machine behind her. Her lips moved silently, whispering to something Reza couldn't see. The AI, Reza's gut tightened. She looked pale, drawn, like a candle burning too hot. Sprocket stepped forward, but Reza held her back. "Let her finish," he murmured. Lena opened her eyes. "You're late," she said, smiling faintly. Lena had always been the team's dreamer, an idealist with a poet's heart and a cryptographer's brain. The fact that she was now plugged into an alien AI system and teaching a human riddles was entirely on brand. "They didn't realize what they had," she said, rubbing at the dried nodes on her skin as Sprocket disabled the pod's lockdown. "The AI isn't a single consciousness. It's a neural network grown like coral, self-correcting but reactive. All logic, no imagination." "So you gave it some?" Reza asked. She nodded. "I introduced it to Shakespeare. And memes. Mostly memes." Reza blinked. "You're telling me you used shitposts to corrupt an alien AI?" "I used metaphor. The memes were just spice." Reza looked at Sprocket, who shrugged. "I love her." The group moved quickly now. With Lena in tow, they re-entered the shaft network, aiming for the central tower, where communications and gravity control converged. Reza's plan wasn't just escape. It was collapse. Wipe the prison from orbit. Make it too dangerous to ever rebuild. The perfect message. Lena filled them in as they moved. "They're watching for you, Reza. The warden thinks you're a tactical threat. I am. More than that, you're a symbol." Reza frowned. "Of what?" "Unpredictability. They don't understand how one human, injured, alone, can be a greater risk than a mutiny." "That's the thing," he said. "I'm not alone." They reached the comms access point. It was locked down, but Sprocket was already unscrewing panels before Reza even gave the order. Lena pulled a small bundle from her jumpsuit, a fragment of AI interface, cable she kept hidden. She plugged it in. "I can override the warden's command chain, but I'll need a distraction." Reza cracked his knuckles. "I'll find something loud." He turned to Sprocket. "We'll need explosives." "About that," she said, "I've been stashing pieces. But Boomer's the only one who knows where I put them." Reza froze. "Boomer's alive?" Sprocket grinned. "I never said he wasn't." And then, clang, clang, clang. A noise echoed to the pipes overhead. A voice, distant but unmistakable, filtered down from events. "Surprise, nerds." "Boomer." They looked up, and there he was, covered in soot, smeared with something that looked like grease and possibly jam, hanging upside down with a bag of explosives and the biggest grin anyone had seen in weeks. "You missed me," he said. Reza just laughed. "We're going to need a lot of noise." Boomer tossed him a shaped charge. "Then let's wake the neighbors." The first explosion was poetic. It tore through the cafeteria, a calculated burst of plasma and concussive force, shattering reinforced plasteel walls and blowing half the kitchen into orbit. Steam belched from ruptured vents, and the klaxons screamed like wounded animals. Boomer, still upside down in a ventilation shaft, pumped both fists. "Yes!" That one was Sriracha-themed. Reza didn't ask what that meant. He was too busy sprinting down a corridor slick with fire suppressant. Sprocket at his side, patching a stolen control pad into every access port they passed. "Boomer, that was the signal." Reza yelled over the chaos. "You were only supposed to trigger it if we were ready." "I was ready," Boomer replied through the comms. "It's not my fault you were slow." Lena and Sprocket slid into a security checkpoint and ducked beneath a sparking turret. Reza followed a second later, smashing the sensor core with a stolen shock baton. Sparks flew. The turret died. "2 more floors to gravity well," Lena said, eyes darting between readouts. "If we shut it down from the inside..." "The prison sinks into the star," Sprocket finished. "Won't that kill us?" Boomer asked cheerfully. Reza clipped a bandolier of scavenged explosives to his vest. "Only if we're still inside." They moved fast. Vralic guards scrambled in confused packs, barking orders in their guttural clicks and hisses, but their systems were crumbling from within. Thanks to Lena's subtle AI sabotage and Boomer's loud contributions, the prison was in full meltdown. Doors opened to nowhere. Lights flickered strobe-like, casting shadows that danced like ghosts. Inmates ran wild, seizing the moment, overwhelming guards or vanishing into chaos. It wasn't just escape now. It was insurrection. Reza ducked as a plasma bolt sizzled past his head. "We need a path," he shouted. "Left stairwell." Sprocket called. "Secondary maintenance. Chute drop straight to reactor ring." Reza nodded, kicked open the access panel, and dropped into the dark. The chute was slick with condensation, and the fall was longer than expected. Reza rolled as he landed, narrowly avoiding a jagged pipe. Sprocket and Lena landed behind him with practiced grace. Boomer, naturally, landed on his back and laughed. 5-point dismount. Nailed it. They were now at the edge of the gravity core, a massive column of coiled energy suspended in a field of graviton inversions. The hum in the air made Reza's teeth itch. Around them, consoles flickered red, cycling through warnings in Vralic and fractured trade common. Lena walked straight to the main interface, hands already moving. "I need 30 seconds, she said. "Sprocket, I'll need you to rig the bypass." "Reza, hold the line." "Boomer?" Reza asked. Boomer grinned, holding a very large, very unstable-looking device. "I'm on Plan B. If this doesn't work, I press the big button." Reza sighed. There's always a big button. They didn't have 30 seconds. The Vralic burst in with mechanical precision. 8 guards, fully armored, weapons hot. They didn't give speeches or warnings. They just opened fire. Reza moved. His body acted without thought, diving, rolling, returning fire with stolen pistols. His shots weren't perfect, but they didn't need to be. They needed to confuse. And humans were built for chaos. He hurled a pipe into the air to distract the targeting system, kicked a loose panel into a guard's legs, and screamed something utterly obscene in 3 languages. Boomer added a smoke bomb for effect. I call this flavor-burning hair and regret. Sprocket was already at the junction box, sparks flying as she cross-wired the relay. Lena's eyes were focused, hands a blur. 20%, she called. "It's working." Reza took a hit, just a graze, but enough to knock him sideways. He crashed into a rail, breath knocked out of him. A Vralic raised its weapon, energy charging. Then it stopped, froze. A second later, its head twitched and it ran, sprinting away in uncharacteristic panic. Reza blinked. "Lena," he rasped. "What did you do?" "I showed the AI a human horror movie marathon," she said. "It's decided we're more dangerous than the inmates. You corrupted an alien intelligence with terrible cinema?" She shrugged. "The AI like the one where the toaster killed everyone, with the remaining guards in full retreat, and the AI now subtly sabotaging its own systems to help them, the team reached the gravity core's central control. Done." Sprocket yelled. "Reactor override engaged," Lena confirmed. "The prison's falling apart faster than they can stop it." Reza stood, wincing as he put weight on his leg. "Boomer, you ready with your part?" Boomer was already pressing the big red button. The floor rumbled. "Oh, no," Lena said. "Oh, yes," Boomer said. The prison began to tilt. Artificial gravity spasmed as the central stabilizer was overridden. Alarms screamed in 3 languages. Outside, through a narrow viewport, the stars tilted, and the distant glow of the dying star grew brighter. Sprocket checked her hack datapad. "We got 6 minutes before we're nothing but cosmic confetti." Reza nodded. "Then we finish what we started." He turned to his team, scorched, bruised, grinning like lunatics. Time to disappear. By the time they reached the hangar, the prison was in its death spiral. The artificial horizon listed 30 degrees. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut at random. Lights flickered in epileptic patterns. Somewhere deep in the core, the gravitational pulse hiccuped, causing the entire wing of the prison to buckle inward like crumpled foil. Reza stumbled to the final blast door, sweat plastering his uniform to his back. Behind him, Sprocket carried a jury-rigged power core cradled like a newborn, its sparks gently licking the air. Lena followed with the AI interface, cable still wrapped around her arm, like a leash for a very curious dog. Boomer somersaulted in last, and immediately started singing. Musical note, we're all gonna die. It's gonna be awesome. Musical note. Boomer. Reza barked. Focus. Boomer snapped to attention. Right. Sorry. But admit it, 10% of you was vibing. No one denied it. The hangar was a nightmare of fire suppression foam and overturned transport skiffs. Most vessels had been locked down when the riot started. What remained were skeletal, stripped, sabotaged, or buried beneath debris. But nestled in the far corner, hidden behind a crash freighter, was Hope, a short-range dropship, Vralic make, still powered and clean. She'll fly, Sprocket said, already climbing into the access panel. Lena scrambled to the comm station. I can jam the remaining sensors for a 30-second launch window. After that, we're fireworks. 30 seconds is generous, Reza said. Boomer. He pulled a pair of thruster coils from his bag and duct-taped them to the rear vent. I've upgraded our exit with style. Within minutes, they were strapped in, Sprocket at the helm, Reza in co-pilot, Boomer behind with both hands on a gravity anchor that absolutely wasn't meant to be handheld, and Lena jacked into the navigation AI. The ship rattled as Sprocket powered up the engine. Reza keyed the comms. All units, this is Reza Hale. If you're human and hearing this, get gone, Boomer added. And if you're not human, oops. The docking clamps hissed. Lena whispered to the AI, her voice low and almost affectionate. You can come with us if you want. The ship lifted. As they blasted free from the hangar, the prison fractured behind them. One of the central spires exploded inward, collapsing like a black hole, was sucking it down. Fire traced delicate veins across its outer hull, and escape pods burst from its sides like spores from a dying plant. From orbit, it would have looked like a star blooming and dying all at once. Inside the ship, silence. No one spoke for a long moment, not even Boomer. And then Lena exhaled. We made it. Reza nodded. Yeah, we did. It took 3 jumps to clear the system, each one riskier than the last. The dropship wasn't meant for long-term travel, and Boomer-style modifications rattled every time the FDL drive kicked in. They made it to neutral space 2 days later. The nearest human outpost, Hestia Relay, blinked them a cautious green. Medical teams boarded with wide eyes and stretchers. Lena waved them off with a tired smile. We'll walk. They did walk, bruised, limping but heads high. A week later, the footage leaked. A full data core, gifted anonymously, spread across 10 systems. It showed the moment the AI learned to fear, the riot that became an uprising, the human prisoners who turned a supermax into a crater. The Vralic Empire denied everything. But no one missed the implication. Human prisoners were not to be underestimated. Ever again. Back at Hestia, Reza stood on a balcony, watching a maintenance drone fail hilariously to paint a straight line. Sprocket joined him, sipping something neon from a thermos. So, what now? Now, Reza said. We rest, then we raise hell somewhere else. She nodded. Boomer's building a flamethrower. He would. From soup cans. Reza closed his eyes and grinned. Yeah, that tracks. Inside, Lena sat with the station's AI core, laughing gently as it asked her to explain sarcasm again. She was patient, kind, just dangerous enough to be irreplaceable. Boomer slept upside down in a cargo net, snoring and muttering about sentient oatmeal. Together, they were the worst and best thing that had ever happened to a Vralic prison. No one ever captured a human again. Not because of treaties, not because of politics, but because somewhere out there, whispered in the shadows of command centers and scrawled in fear across briefing screens, was a phrase no alien officer ever wanted to hear. It's just one human.